This past weekend, I was at a 1.7K tournament in Manchester, Connecticut. It was supposed to be a 2.5, but that's not the point. We'll talk about all that. It was a really good experience, and I want to talk about that experience, and I want to talk about a silly mistake that I made that cost me from getting top cut. And I'm still seething about it on the inside, but I got a smile on the outside, right? Because that's how feelings work. You just push them down. No, oh man, I don't even know what to say about it. It was silly, but we'll talk about it. Hey everybody, Damn. Hey, it's gonna be one of those days. Hey everybody, Nick from 9card TCG, and today we're going to be talking about what it's like to return to in-person tournaments for the Pokemon trading card game. I know for some of you it has been a little while, or if you're like me, it's been 20 years since you've gone to a real like in-person Pokemon tournament. So let's talk about it. So on Saturday, or this past Saturday, whatever the date was, the 12th, I drove 3 hours to go to Manchester, Connecticut, a store called Most Excellent Gaming that was having a 2.5K. Now, what is a 2.5K, or what is really any K? They're talking about the amount of money that's given out as prizes. So a 2.5K means that there are $2,500 in prizes that are going to be given out to players depending on how they place. Obviously, first place gets the most, and depending on the size, you might go down to 8th place getting a prize, or if there's a ton of people, you might even go all the way to top 16 getting a prize. So normally there is some minimum threshold of players you need to hit the maximum payout of $2,500. So in this case, we needed 50 people or more to play, and then we would have had a payout of $2,500 in prizes. We only had 35, so it dropped it down to about a 1.7K. When you are looking for tournaments to play, Arcane 9 Labs or Limitless are really good resources. Facebook and Twitter and the official Pokemon website are all really good places to start looking for tournaments so that you can find some place to play. You usually can register online, submit your deck list online, maybe even check in. Now, one of the things to consider when you first arrive at a venue is that you still want to check in. You want to make sure that you tell the event staff that I am here, it's before the deadline or whatever, and you can either pay your tournament fee if you haven't already. Just check in. They can give you your entry prizes. Sometimes you'll get packs or a playmat or something like that just for entering into the tournament. So you want to collect all that and just kind of hang out before the tournament starts. Something that you should do, and this is something that I do personally, is have your deck list written out somewhere before you get to the event, because if the place is not taking online deck list registrations or submissions, then they're going to have you write on a piece of paper what your deck list is. And you don't want to be fanning out all of your cards in front of everybody because, well, someone can take a look and see what you're playing and if you have any special text or anything like that. So have it written out on a piece of paper, on a note on your phone. I personally use the Dragon Shield Pokemon TCG app. I have all of my IRL deck lists on that app, and it's really, really cool and convenient, and I don't have to worry about whatever note or it gets deleted. It's just I can make edits and changes directly in the app. Super cool. I don't get paid, or I'm not sponsored by Dragon Shield. They have no idea I even exist. It's just a really cool app, and I think it's useful if you plan on playing in tournaments. Now, so okay, registration's taken care of, deck lists are submitted, you're just kind of hanging out waiting for the player meeting. The player meeting is kind of like the rules synopsis or the overview of the event before you start playing. This way everyone's on the same page and no one can sit there and say, oh, I didn't know that this would. Everybody's gonna know. So in this particular event, they're like, okay, we're playing Pokemon trading card game, 6 rounds, best of 3, we have 50 minutes. What else was there? Standard format, which they'll tell you Sword and Shield to Fusion Strike. So, I mean, you should know what standard format is, what sets are legal in standard format. So, but anyway, sometimes they might tell you. And then they're going to say, okay, round one is going to be posted in just a minute. So you hang out. Once they announce that round one is, live, they could do it in a couple of different ways. If they're using an app or a website, then you could just check your phone and see, okay, what table am I at? Who am I playing? And they might have like a display screen that just kind of turn on. That's what this place had. It was really cool. It was like a vertical TV, like a TV turn on its side, and they just put a piece of paper up on it, like a projection, and you just look at it. They also printed the paper and posted it on the wall, so you can kind of go up to it and kind of help break up the crowd. So you see that you're playing at table 5 and you're playing against Billy. I don't know, just randomly. What the tables will have like those little restaurant table markers, either there'll be some marker or some way of telling you what table you're at or where the tables are. So you get to the table, and when your opponent arrives, or if you arrive and your opponent's already there, confirm with them that they're who you're supposed to be playing, because there's a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to be playing against someone that's not your opponent, because if you play them later, now they know some of your deck and they know what you're playing, and they might put a different Pokemon in the active. They might try to do something different. You don't want to give your opponent any advantage that you don't have to. The second reason is that you are wasting time shuffling and setting up and discussing with a person who you're not even supposed to be playing. If I sit down and I just start playing, what if I'm at the wrong table? What if I'm actually at table 6 and I start shuffling or whatever, I'm talking to my opponent, and I'm supposed to be at table 5? I'm wasting time, and I'm wasting my opponent's time and someone else's time as well. So there's a lot of things. You can very easily, in a best of 3, take what is supposed to be a win, or what could have been a win, and turn it into a tie because you didn't play fast enough, or you wasted those couple of minutes setting up to the wrong person. You gotta move all your stuff and set up all over again. It's a whole big thing. Confirm, hey, you're Billy, cool, Nick, all right, and then you can start. So once you start, it's like a regular Pokemon game, right? You're gonna roll a die or flip a coin to see who goes first, and then that person makes their decision. You set up, and cutting the deck can be a little weird, right? Some people either aren't comfortable handling someone else's cards, or they might not be comfortable with other people handling their cards, whether it's because they don't like the way they're shuffling. I saw someone bridge the crap out of their cards and really bend it. I was like, I don't really want this person touching my cards, but they do, and they were respectful, and there was no issue with it. But if you're uncomfortable, maybe you don't want people handling your cards because of COVID or whatever, then you have a couple of options. You can get a judge to shuffle your cards for you. That doesn't really help with the COVID thing. Or you can have your opponent break up the deck into a number of piles, and then tell them which order to put the piles back in. So now that you're playing, how does the event staff know who won? Well, as you're playing these, they're going to go around and they're going to give out these little strips of paper. Again, this is assuming they're not using something like Limitless or Arcanine to kind of keep track of that. So if they're using the app, use the app. If they're gonna do paper, they will go around while you're playing and put a slip of paper next to you. And so, like I said, it's a little sheet of paper, and all it has is, it says player 1 and the name, win, loss, draw. Player 2, their name, win, loss, draw, and there's a box for drop for each player. And there's a spot for player 1 signature, spot for player 2 signature. Make sure you are checking the correct boxes. If you're player 1 and you don't look quickly, or you look too quickly, and you check that player 2 won and you sign off on it and submit it, you just gave yourself a loss, even though you really should have won. So make sure if your opponent's filling it out, that they're filling it out correctly. I haven't seen anybody fill it out incorrectly, but I'm sure someone somewhere in the history of the Pokemon trading card game has done that. Don't let it happen to you. So once you submit that paper, once you fill that paper out, there's either you hand it to the event staff, or maybe they have a little drop box. You just kind of put it in, and then you're done. You hang out until the timer's up, and you wait for the next round. Depending on how many rounds there are will determine how many wins, losses, and draws that you can have in order to move on to whatever top cut is. So in this event, the top cut was top 8, and you needed a record of 4, 2, and 0 or better to move on to the top 8. And there were only a couple people who, because of wins and losses, there was only like 2 people who went 4, 2, and 0. Most people who went on were 4, 1, and 1 or better. We're 3 rounds in. I am 3 and 0, and I am feeling super, super good. I hit first round of Duraludon VMAX, single strike Urshifu. I managed to have a tool scrapper and was able to win that game pretty decisively. We took that round, 2 wins, no losses. Cool. Round 2, I hit one of the 2 Jolteons, and it was unfortunate because I didn't want to play against this person. They're a friend of Gabe Smart's, and Gabe Smart is my coach, and I don't want to play his friends, right? But unfortunately, it's what happened, and they're playing Jolteon, and I'm playing Urshifu. That's like an 80% win rate in my favor, and of course, I did take that round 2 wins to 0, so feeling pretty good. Round 3, Eternatus, another very heavily favored match in my favor, so awesome. We're 3 rounds in. I haven't hit a single Mew. There's like 35 people, 20 something are playing Mew, and a couple of people are playing Suicune. Haven't hit a single one. All really good matchups. Round 4. Round 4, I just needed to win, and then round 5 and 6, I can just intentionally draw and just go, hey, do you want to take this draw? Do you want to? And they're probably going to say yes because that helps guarantee them a spot in Top Cut, and I would have been in Top Cut. But I lost round 4, and I was playing against Eternatus with Hoopa, and that Hoopa did change the matchup because they got it out really quickly and started attaching energies to it, which would threaten my Urshifu V and VMAX, and so I had to be really careful. So round 1, I started a Houndour, really tough start. It was a very close game. I think I prized one of my single strike energies, and I couldn't get it out of the prizes. I kept picking things that were not it, and because of that I lost. Round 2 I won. Round 3, or game 3 I should say, I made a huge misplay. I probably could have won game 1 too if I made a slightly different play, but we're going to talk about game 3 because that was the one where I should have won and I would have won the round. But let's take a look at the desktop. So for the most part, this was roughly the setup at the time of the misplay. I had 2 Houndooms onto the field, and I had already played my 1 Crobat earlier. Again, the bench might have looked a little bit different, but for all intents and purposes, this was the setup. I had a tower, 2 prizes remaining. Now, I had 2 single strike energies in the discard pile, and I had 2 in the deck. No energies on my single strike Urshifu. So my plan was to basically say, okay, I need to draw an energy and then single strike Roar twice, and I can attack the Eternatus VMAX for the win. I had already used my Tower of Darkness, so I had some cards in hand. So I said, you know what? I have a Professor's Research. So my plan was to go ahead and single strike Roar once to the Urshifu, and then shuffle up all that kind of stuff, and then play Professor's Research and draw, and all that has to happen, I either have to draw an energy and not my second single strike energy, or I can draw the single strike energy as long as I draw another Urn of Vitality, which I had 2 of in the deck. So I play Professor's Research, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it was something to this effect. I drew an energy and I drew my second single strike energy, but no Urn of Vitality. So now I could attach, but I couldn't single strike Roar my other energy because I had drawn it, and I didn't have an urn to put the other 2 energies back into the deck. And because of that mistake, I ended up losing. Now, is it a mistake? I don't know. Because what if I did remove both single strike energies and then I shuffle the deck and then I don't draw a third energy to attach? Right? My thought process and my plan was, I'm going to try to leave 1 energy in the deck, or as many energies as realistically possible in the deck, so I had the best chances of drawing one, because I didn't really have that many cards left in the deck. It was only a handful. I have 2 Urns of Vitality in the deck. What are the odds that I don't draw one? And the odds in this case were 100% I don't draw one because it already happened, so we know the results. And it was such a heartbreaking loss to lose because I whiffed an Urn, or because I maybe should have used a second single strike Roar. I mean, again, there's no way to know that if I pull that other card out, would I have drawn an urn? Would I have drawn that extra energy to manually attach and attack? I have no idea. So it's you have to, when these things happen, when you make these misplays or these things that like the game was so close that you could have won, it was in your hands. On the next couple of rounds, you have to move on. You have to try your best to forget about it and just continue. Because even though I should have won that game, the Pokemon trading card game is still heavily RNG. It's heavily random, right? What you draw, what your opponent draws, shuffling, and it's extremely random. And just because a matchup is favored does not mean you are guaranteed to win it. Could I have done some other stuff differently over the course of the 3 games? I definitely could have. In game 1, I should have benched an Umbreon V so that I can boss up a Crobat and just take an easy knockout and get my last 2 prizes. Because then I could just evolve to Umbreon VMAX if I didn't have a boss. There's a lot of things that I could have done differently. I was afraid that if I benched an Umbreon V, they would just boss it up and boss stall and take their last 2 prizes because I didn't have any air balloons left. So, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and things that you don't think about. You try to cover your bases as much as possible, and sometimes it doesn't always work. So unfortunately, I now I'm 3-1, and I have to win one of my next 2 matches in order to try to intentionally draw on the other one, and then I can make top cut. My next 2 matches were Ice Rider and then Suicune Ludicolo, which are tough matchups for Urshifu. I drew really poorly against Ice Rider. I do think it was a very winnable matchup. I think that was a 2-1 loss. And then the Suicune Ludicolo, I just not only drew fairly poorly, but my opponent went crazy. They just played super, super well, and there was just nothing I could do about it. So I ended the day 3-3. It really, really stung, but that's part of being a competitive Pokemon player, right? You're not always going to do super well in tournaments. You're not always going to have a great day. Sometimes a great day starts, and then it turns into something like that. It turns into a 3-3. Sometimes a 0-2 day, then you go 4-2, and you're like, man, that actually went pretty well. It's just, it happens. The card games, Pokemon in general, is pretty random. Even if you were to play the video game, the sheer number of things that your opponent can do, the attacks they use, the customization with the IVs, EVs, items, all abilities, all that kind of stuff, it's fairly random who you go against. And what are the odds that I played, someone who had a Eternatus with Hoopa and then managed to get that Hoopa out super early and had all the bosses and Umbreon VMAXs to kind of pull my Pokemon up and take a fairly easy knockouts and chip away. It was just not my day. And what separates someone like a casual player in a tournament and someone who is competitive, professional, and performs well is that they keep playing even after they do poorly. Maybe they don't keep playing that event, but they keep pushing and they keep trying, and the next event is a totally new thing, and you learn from those mistakes. I know for me personally, in the future, when I see an alternate win condition like benching an Umbreon V so that I can boss up something, I'm gonna do it. I'm also gonna make sure that I use Single Strike Roar as much as I possibly can. Part of the thing was, I said, I need to draw an energy too. It's not just a matter of using Single Strike Roar. I also have to draw a third energy. And I didn't think there were that many energies left in the deck. I thought it would be better to leave that energy and hit an urn and then not. But apparently I was wrong. So don't let these mistakes discourage you. Don't let the misplays and the missing top cuts discourage you. Just keep pushing, learn from it, and then who knows, you're going to be put in that situation again, I'm sure, over the course of time. Maybe you try a different deck. Maybe you say, you know what, this deck just isn't cutting it for the meta. I'm gonna play something else, and you start practicing with another deck prior to an event. Don't just like the day before be like, you know what, and this is something I actually considered. I considered playing Duraludon VMAX. It was like the day before the tournament, and I was like, I haven't had enough practice with this new Duraludon, and it's like I don't know if I'm going to be making the right decisions. I don't really know the matchups too well. I'm going to continue to play Urshifu because it's what I know the best, and it's pretty good overall. It's just very unfortunate that I hit those two really tough matchups on potential win and in game. So that's the story of my first in real life Pokemon trading card game in like 20 years. I hope that you take away something from this, whether it's just how tournaments are structured these days, maybe if you haven't been to a tournament in the past, what you can expect. Changing your mentality or having the right mentality is very, very important. You're going to walk into these matches, and if you're like, man, I'm going to lose, your confidence is going to, and you're not going to perform well. You're not going to make the right decisions. You're not going to check your prizes, and you're just not going to make the best choices and maximize your chances to win, because you never know, your opponent might misplay, your opponent might draw really poorly, and you should still give yourself a fighting chance. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video. Unfortunately, I went by myself. I didn't, I met a couple of people there, but I didn't have like Lauren or anyone there to get some footage and gameplay or of the gameplay or the venue and anything like that. So in the future, I want to kind of turn these into, I guess, VOD style videos, but I went by myself. Lauren, she's busy. She got work. We'll make it happen in the future, but that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. I did all this already. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the deal. Let's get to 1,000. Give away 1,000. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.